Marty.
Raise.
We know Hugo likes these ace-X.
He loves it, yeah. Can't get enough of them.
Likes to stare him down, too.
We haven't seen him 3-bet, I don't think. He's just been calling small blind, button before, button again here.
Yep.
Takes 2 to tango. Did I ever mention that tango was originated in Uruguay?
You didn't.
Yeah, that's a fact, Jeff.
Wow.
Tango. It all started right here in the beautiful country of Uruguay.
Wow.
Yeah.
From Montevideo itself, right? The capital?
Yeah.
Right?
So, oh, my.
Oh, boy. Comes ace-7-6, the open ender for Carlos. Top pair for Marty, but top 2 pair for Hugo.
What a ridiculous flop.
And it's Carlos leading here for 125K with 430K behind.
Absolute legend. Look at Carlos.
Stone cold.
Marty probably maybe on this sort of texture consider raising. No, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, he makes it 300K.
And Hugo, uh-oh. Here it comes. Marty is not going to be happy with this spot.
Carlos has 430,000 behind. Hugo has 3.1 million. Marty has all the chips.
Now, if Hugo puts in another raise here and Carlos stuffs it with the open ender, oh, this is very trappy.
As he makes the call. Carlos not going to stuff it quite yet.
This flop is it's just wow, Jonathan. And it reveals a lot about the way these players think, even pre-flop does. Marty is the guy here who's a pro. He's the one who's had success among these guys. And you can kind of see why when you look at these decisions. First of all, Hugo just calling ace-7 off pre-flop when there's an open feels really not great. And then, yeah, the way Carlos played the flop in general is not ideal with his stack size. Let's talk about all of these decisions, starting with Carlos leading the flop. What do you think's going on there?
I don't really know why he would lead, and especially why he would lead it with this sizing specifically. He's not going to necessarily get folds at this sizing against 2 opponents on this board. I don't understand it. I like a check raise all in way better than leading 125.
No, yeah, check raise all in really feels correct to me. It feels a lot better. Yeah. And that seems like what you should be doing if you're Carlos. Hugo not raising when Marty raises Carlos's bet, seems a little strange too. I think we get what Marty's doing here. He's trying to isolate Carlos's short stack and get it in against him. But then Hugo, of course, is flopped monstrously well and decides just to flat. What do you think about that?
I don't understand why he wouldn't put in a raise right now. I guess he's wanting to see a card come off before he puts in the big raise. He doesn't want to maybe get it in against a huge combo draw of Marty. That's all I have. But Marty doesn't have that many huge combo draws, really, right? He has like the 8-9 of diamonds and the 9-10 of diamonds, and that's kind of it. There isn't really many others. I guess he could be in trouble against pocket sixes. We're beating so much of Marty's range, and if you understand if you look around, it's pretty obvious what Marty's doing. I think a re-raise here is great. You just got to like clean up the equity. It's really clear. It's okay to take it down right now, by the way, too.
Right.
It's a wet board.
Hugo decides not to, which puts it back on Carlos. And this decision is the most interesting, I think, so far, in that it is like, it's pretty clear that what Carlos needs to do, and it's pretty clear that he's not doing it. When he flats here, leaving himself with $250,000 behind in a 1.25 million chip pot with 9 high. I mean, there's a scenario that plays out here where a diamond comes on the turn. There's another bet not by Carlos, and Carlos ends up folding this hand, having put in this much of his stack. This seems like a mistake.
It really does. I mean, he's leaving himself with 5 blinds. Like, what is the point? We started with 11. Now we're going to have 5. We've already put in more than half our stack into this pot. We have a strong draw. We expect we're not going to fold these guys out. That's okay.
No, we're trying to triple up.
We're going to get 2 to 1 on our all in. We're almost always going to get called by both players. This is great.
Yep. It really feels like he needs to be moving in. And yeah, these decisions are making my stomach hurt, Jonathan.
By the way, we might move in and then Marty might, we think, isolate.
Yeah.
And that would be even better. Then we don't have to be one player. Maybe we can hit an 8 or a 9 once in a while to win.
Oh, and then we're getting the greatest odds ever. Man,
right.
We should have done that, but we didn't.
No question.
Let's see what happens if these guys keep making these types of decisions.
Okay.
Speaking of making decisions, the best one you'll make today is signing up for Nitrogen Sports, baby.
Pew, pew.
Yeah, that was my salesman voice, but Nitrogen Sports, genuinely good poker site. It's where the poker guys play. It's where we like to talk about because they offer the greatest tournament in the world every month. They guarantee 1,000 buy-ins. We only ever get 100 to 200 players. And guess what? You got to use the link that we tweet out when you sign up or you don't even get access to it.
Yeah, so get on our Twitter feed and find the Nitrogen Sports link. It is all over there. It's not hard to find at all. And man, that gets you into this and actually some other things too. We had a free roll very recently, the $1,000 free roll, just because. And we do things like that sometimes. You have to use the link though to sign up to have access to any of this stuff. Otherwise, you're just a normal person on Nitrogen. And who wants that?
Eyebrows are raised. 8 of diamonds on the turn. A pair and a straight draw now for Carlos. Nobody has a diamond.
This might check through. Hugo could be afraid of the flush that's come home. Still slightly scared of Marty, who did raise this flop with ace-jack over top of a Carlos lead. All of a sudden, it is sticky.
It does check all the way around. River card is the 9 of diamonds, so it's 2 pair for Carlos, who just rips it in.
Oh my. Tell me this
Nobody
isn't gonna
has
work,
a
right?
diamond.
Is this going to work? Is Hugo really going to fold? It's a one-liner to a straight. Any diamond beats you. It's 255,000 into 1.5 million, and this could somehow work for the legend that is Carlos. It's the only hand you beat. Somehow 7-8 or 8-9. Oh my gosh, it's gonna work.
It's gonna fold. It works.
I think we've entered the twilight zone because that was impossible what just happened.
Na 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 na. Yeah, pretty much the twilight zone. I don't know of a hand I can think of in the history of poker where something has worked out better for a player who makes the strangest decisions in the world at every possible chance they get. And that's what happened here for Carlos. As the title of this video said, he tripled up basically without a showdown. How can you do that?
And he started the hand with 11 blinds, so
Yeah.
he should be able to get to showdown really easily. And there were 3 players in the hand. It's super weird. It's confusing as hell. Okay, so let's just start. We're going to just chronologically because everyone has a decision here, right? In some ways. I mean, Marty has the easiest one. But Carlos decides to move in. What is he doing and why?
Well, I don't know. I think
Right.
that's also what he's doing is the I don't know thing. He is confused because it's like this run out is pretty bad for my hand, but I now have 2 pair. But there's 4 diamonds and 4 to a straight. So if you ever get called, you're always losing, right? With this 2 pair.
No
Like
question.
maybe on the river Hugo could have called if he decided to put his hero cape on. I understand why he folded, but even if he calls with this hand, we lose, right? And this is the worst possible hand we can expect to get called by is a hand like Hugo's.
One of the problems also is we don't have enough chips to fold out some of the weaker hands that are absolutely destroying us here. I mean, no, we can fold out a hand specifically like Hugo's, but we can't. I don't think we can fold out like a 10. Like
No.
if Hugo has a 10, he's calling. If Marty has a 10, he might call for 5 blind. What?
One of these guys could have a diamond and they're going to be obligated to call with pretty much any diamond at this point.
This hand probably plays better as a check call or check and see what happens, but often a check call, right? Like you check if Marty bets and Hugo folds, you could decide to call as Carlos and hope to win.
You could also decide to fold, by the way. It wouldn't be
You
the end
could.
of the world.
But you have 5 blinds. The thing is, I feel like it's what you said, though. He moved in because he had 2 pair and he didn't know what else to do with it. He didn't want to have to call the 2 pair, so he just moves in. I don't think he's trying to get a better 2 pair to fold, even though that's what ends up happening by some miracle.
Well, let's talk about that because Marty's fold seems trivial to me after the flop action and the run out. It feels like Marty is in a bind here and there's no way he can consider calling with Hugo behind.
Correct.
This is a terrible run out for Hugo's hand, certainly.
Yeah.
Should he consider calling with this hand?
I mean, I think I would fold this hand, quite frankly. I think I would just throw it away. It sucks. But, like, you're getting a great price, but how are you not beat?
Right.
Like, let's look at the action.
Well, let's think about distribution. We're getting 6-1. Are we high enough in our distribution to call getting 6-1? I think probably not.
Not
but
on this board.
close.
The board changed so dramatically.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, we have plenty of big diamonds in our hand that we might have played this way. We have hands that turn the flush that I guess we usually don't play this way because we're probably going to bet the turn, but some of the time I guess we must be checking flushes on the turn. We might have hands like ace queen with the queen of diamonds in our hand, or ace jack with the jack of diamonds. So yeah, we have straights, we have some sets. This is pretty low in the distribution. I think that can justify a fold.
I mean, also, if we think about it, what is Carlos supposed to have that doesn't beat us? He called the flop.
Yep.
Right, well, leaving himself 5 blinds and then moved in on the river. I mean, it turns out he has a hand, but it's that we can beat. But it's almost impossible to think of anything that he would have here, and even decide to bluff with when he only has 5 blinds until
it's almost impossible to think of him playing any hand this way, though.
Yes.
It's very strange, obviously.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. If it's Hugo, we had just bet the turn like we were probably supposed to, where we're willing to get it in against Carlos's 5 blinds, but we don't give Marty a free shot at the whole world here, right? Like, we probably win this hand almost always if we just bet the turn. By the way, if we 3-bet the flop or bet the turn, or even 3-bet pre-flop, we probably win this hand every time.
Yep.
So that's really too bad.
3-betting pre-flop, we probably win a pretty big pot, actually, a pretty decent-sized pot. But that is not what happened. Instead, Carlos gets the most unlikely triple up in the history of breakdown hands that we've done, I think. I don't think I can think of
maybe
one.
poker in general.
Maybe poker in general.
Okay, surprising and unusual decisions abound in this one. There's so many things you could potentially comment on, so take your pick, really. Pre-flop, Hugo decides not to 3-bet. On the flop, Hugo decides not to 3-bet after Carlos leads and then calls for half a stack. What do you think about all these decisions? Hey, the turn, Hugo decides not to bet. The river, Carlos moves in, Hugo decides not to call. Pick any of those that you think that you want to talk about, because there's so many things. Do you think we're right on these things because we have very strong opinions, or do you actually disagree with us and think you actually like some of these decisions? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
We'd also love to hear us on our podcast, because whenever you listen, we can hear the sounds that you're making. It's a weird podcast feature that we have. It's called the Breakdown Poker Podcast, presented by the Poker Guys. You can find it wherever you get your podcast. It's how we come to our conclusions in these hands. It's like 45 minutes to an hour. We go way more in depth. We have a lot of fun, and we do 2 a week, so there's more content there. Check it out.